Most Nigerians believe they already know what happened in 1966. But what if I told you the full story is not what you think it is? Because what happened that night didn't just change the government. It changed the future of Nigeria forever. On January 15, 1966, Nigeria woke up to gunshots. Within hours, the Prime Minister was gone. Top leaders were dead. And a question was born that still divides Nigeria today. Was it really an Igbo coup or something deeper? This is one of the most misunderstood events in Nigerian history. A story of power, fear, betrayal, and consequences that led to war. If you've ever heard people say, the Igbo planned the coup. Today, we break it down step by step. To understand the coup, you must first understand Nigeria. Before 1966, Nigeria gained independence in 1960, full of hope and promise. But beneath that hope, there was tension. The country was divided into 3 major regions. Each region had its own dominant ethnic group and political power. The north was largely controlled by the House of Fulani. The west was dominated by the Yoruba, and the east was led by the Igbo. Instead of unity, politics quickly became a struggle for control. Elections were marred by accusations of rigging. Violence broke out, especially in the western region. Politicians were accused of corruption and greed, and slowly, the country began to shake. By the mid-1960s, Nigeria was already unstable. Many people had lost faith in the political system. And inside the military, some young officers believed something had to change. Then came January 15, 1966. A group of young military officers decided that enough was enough. They believed the politicians had failed the country. They believed corruption had gone too far, and they believed it was time to take control. The coup was led by Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogu and other officers. They launched coordinated attacks across different parts of Nigeria. In Kaduna, in Lagos, and in Ibadan, they struck in middle of the night. Top political leaders were assassinated. The Prime Minister, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, was killed. The Premier of the Northern Region, Ahmadu Bello, was also killed. And the Premier of the Western Region, Ladoke Akintola, did not survive. The goal of the coup plotters was clear. They wanted to end corruption. They wanted to reset the system. And they wanted to rebuild Nigeria. But the plan did not fully succeed. Almost immediately, something changed the way people saw the coup. Many began to notice that most of the officers leading the coup were Igbo. At the same time, many of the political leaders who were killed were from the north and the west. Very few Igbo political leaders were targeted. Then, after the coup failed in some areas, power eventually fell into the hands of General Johnson Agui Iramsi, an Igbo officer. To many Nigerians, especially in the north, this did not look like a national revolution. It looked like something else. It looked like an ethnic takeover. And that perception would shape everything that followed. But the truth is more complicated. Not all the officers involved in the coup were Igbo. Some were from other ethnic groups, including the Yoruba. And many of them believed they were acting in the interest of the entire country. There is no clear evidence that the coup was officially planned as an ethnic agenda. Instead, it appears to have been driven by frustration, anger, and a desire to fix a broken system. But in history, perception can be more powerful than intention. And once people began to believe it was an Igbo coup, that belief spread quickly. After the coup, General Ironsi took control of Nigeria. He suspended the constitution and ended democratic rule. Nigeria was now under military government. Then he introduced a policy that would create even more tension. It was called the Unification Decree. This decree removed the federal structure of Nigeria. It reduced the power of the regions and centralized authority under one government. To some, This looked like a step toward unity. But to many in the north, it looked like a plan for domination. Tensions grew rapidly, distrust deepened, and anger began to build. Then, 6 months later, everything exploded. On July 29, 1966, northern soldiers carried out a counter-coup. It was violent, it was sudden, and it was driven by revenge. General Ironsi was captured and killed. Many Igbo soldiers were also targeted and murdered. The country was no longer just unstable. It was falling apart. What followed was even more tragic. Across northern Nigeria, thousands of Igbo civilians were attacked. Men, women, and children were killed. Homes were destroyed. Families were forced to flee. Entire communities packed what they could carry and ran back to the eastern region. For many, it was a desperate journey for survival. At this point, Nigeria was deeply divided. Trust between regions had collapsed completely. The eastern region, led by Lieutenant Colonel Odumegwu Ojukwu, made a critical decision. They declared independence. They called their new nation Biafra. And in 1967, Nigeria went to war. The Nigerian Civil War would last for 3 years. It would claim millions of lives, and it would leave scars that are still felt today. The 1966 coup really an Igbo coup? The answer depends on who you ask. Some believe it was a carefully planned ethnic takeover. Others believe it was a failed attempt to save Nigeria from corruption and collapse. But one thing is certain: the events of 1966 changed Nigeria forever. They set off a chain reaction of violence, mistrust, and division. And even today, many Nigerians still debate what really happened. Because until we fully understand that moment, we may never fully understand Nigeria itself. What do you think? Was it truly an Igbo coup? Or was it misunderstood? Share your thoughts in the comments, or keep it respectful.